Welcome along to Silverstone, everybody, for another weekend of racing from the GT Cup Championship. This time we're on the full Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone, and it's the Silverstone 100 weekend. 2 sprint races and 1 longer endurance race to look forward to as the cars and the drivers can really stretch their legs. We caught up with a couple of the drivers that join us on the Silverstone 100 this weekend. We managed to catch up with Frank Thomas and championship returnee Jamie Stanley earlier on today. So Frank, here we are, Silverstone for the Silverstone 100. You'll be looking forward to this one, bouncing back after a difficult weekend at Snetterton, and you've got yourself a new teammate.
Yes, it was a difficult time at Snetterton, and yeah, Jamie, first time I've met Jamie, he's come highly recommended, and yesterday he proved his worth with a 203 in traffic, I might add. So we set the bar very high, so we're going to do our best.
Obviously, you've
had the last time we met, we were naked in the shower, were we not?
We were.
It's been a while.
You've got your clothes on now. That's good, as have I. So yeah, new teammate for this weekend. You've had James Pickford on board for the full season so far. You'll be hoping that you might grab another one of those group wins that you grabbed at Donington at the opening weekend of the season. Yeah. I mean, there was a bit of fortuitousness came at the previous races, but that's racing, you know. Hopefully we get a podium and get it deservedly, you know. So, but it's a big class this time. I think there's a lot of cars in the GTC, so we'll do our best. And Jamie, for you, good to see you back in GT Cup. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, it's nice to be back. It's been longer than I would like.
2022, I think. Lauren Demise, was it? Snetterton, the finale, last time we saw you?
Yeah, I think we spent a long time getting wet that weekend, so it's hopefully for a dry weekend here at Silverstone.
And your duty this weekend is, go through data with Frank, try and point him in the right direction as any pro drive would do.
Yeah, obviously standing for James this weekend, who's got other commitments, and it's quite nice actually. James, I won the entry racing driver scholarship quite some time ago now, 2005, and James was actually one of the assessing instructors, so it's actually quite good for me to step in for James and cover him from this weekend. But yeah, I'll be going through Frank's data and trying to pass on some knowledge that'll help him achieve his goals.
Well, good luck for this weekend, guys. All the very best in the Silverstone 100.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Ian, Silverstone 100 this weekend. Yourself and Neil have been going really well in Group GTA, lying 3rd overall in the championship standings with 7 group wins this year. You must be looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it should be really good. It's a great circuit here. So, yeah, if we can keep that momentum going, that'll be great.
Group GTA, you're up against some other pretty competitive cars there.
Well, those GT4s are, yeah, they're fast, but we're we're an outer homologation car, so we're a little bit slower than they are. But I've got this wrong on it because GTA. Yeah. There are also the Ginetta, the Super Cup cars, yeah. Particularly the one Matt Priestman, very, very fast. So that's a hard car to beat.
Neil, you'll know full well that it's consistency that wins championships, and you've had a really consistent year so far.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we always take each weekend and we have a plan to start with. The aim is to try and do the best we can with the car on the track for that particular track. And go for the points sometimes, not be a hero, make sure you finish. So I think we've only had 1 DNF, which has been quite painful, but the rest of the time I think we've managed our time pretty well.
First full season in GT Cup for the pair of you. At the beginning of the year, what were your aspirations? What did you think you might be able to achieve?
I think we were looking for some wins in the class. I think it's fair to say we're probably surprised that we're in as strong a position as we are. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
And SVG Motorsport as a team, Andy and the boys always put together a good car.
Oh, it's fantastic, the way they prep the car. And we do a lot of preparation, a lot of testing on the car. It's not the easiest car to drive, but they do a great job. It's always fully prepped. It's brilliant. So.
And here at Silverstone, it's a circuit that the car likes?
Yeah, generally. I mean, it's a power car, so it likes the straights. The twisty stuff's a little bit more challenging sometimes, but yeah, no, it's a good car around here.
Well, surprising amount of twisty stuff around Silverstone, actually.
Well, good to catch up, but all the very best this weekend.
Great, thanks so much. Cheers.
So there we go, a catch up with some of the drivers that we've got joining us on the grid this weekend. The likes of Frank Morris and Jamie Stanley, who run in Group GTC. They are third in the championship in Group GTC, but they're outside of the top 6 overall. And then we also heard from Neil Wallace and Ian Astley, who lead Group GTA in terms of a championship and lie third overall in the championship when you look across all of the classes. So this coming up for you very shortly on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit that we're on is 3.6 miles. It's heading towards 5 kilometres. It's nearly 5.9 kilometres, the circuit. The cars are already nosing their way out of the garages. You can see them all there assembled in the pit lane in advance of what for this weekend. Different format. If you've been with us all season, we go back to the original format that we had at Donington Park, where we had one of the longer races, 100-minute race. We've got the same here this weekend, a 100-minute race to look forward to tomorrow, which means that rather than usual format of a sprint race and endurance race one day, and let's repeat that the following day, we have 2 sprint races today here at Silverstone, and we have the longer 100-minute race, the Silverstone 100, to look forward to tomorrow. So the cars will make their way out of the pit lane area. They then have a full lap to do around the Grand Prix circuit before they assemble on the grid. And then, of course, once they're assembled on the grid, we'll get the countdown, and then they will all be released onto their formation lap. So what we're looking at in front of us at the moment is the fantastic-looking Ferrari, which is a car that joins us as a one-off outing for this weekend. And that is a car that we have seen out racing here at Silverstone in another championship. That's the number 128 AF Corsa car that Marcus Vivian is going to be driving in this particular race. And Marcus will be partnered up this weekend, and that will be a drive that will be well worth watching out for. That's Francesco Castellacci, the pro driver that joins him in what is a glorious-looking Ferrari 296 GT3 as well. That's the 296 GT3 spec car, which has recently, Ferrari have announced the Evo package for that car, so the 296 Evo will be coming out soon. There is the familiar sight of Richard Chamberlain's Porsche. He'll be joined in that car by Nigel Greensall tomorrow, who is flying back from holiday in Portugal today. They've come back a day early, I gather, so that Nigel can help Richard out with the car, but with the green flag waving at the end of the pit lane. That now means that everybody is trundling their way out onto the circuit. I can still see sitting in its garage at the moment a couple of cars. The white Aston Martin in the hands of Chris Valentine, who joins the championship for this weekend. Chris, no stranger to racing. Done a lot of racing in other championships over the years, but joins GT Cup for the first time in the older spec Aston Martin. Out goes number 4, which is Graham Tilley's car, but has got Dominic Paul behind the wheel. Dominic, who was a regular in GT Cup in things like Ginettas some years ago and went well, but he's having his first outing in a Lamborghini, sharing with Will Tregurtha for the longer race tomorrow. And Graham Tilley, we wish him a fast and a speedy recovery. An injury down the gym, I'm afraid. He ripped his tricep, I think, and has had to have an operation to have it re-sewed back on. So get well soon, Graham. And Dominic Paul had a big smile on his face when he hopped out of that Lamborghini for the first time yesterday, having tested it in what were changeable conditions yesterday. It was a strange old day yesterday at Silverstone, whereas you went out on slicks and it started to rain, so you came back in and put some wets on. You go back out again in testing and then it dried, so you have to come back in and put the slicks on, and it just flip-flopped around all day, the weather. It's been far more consistent so far today. So cars making their way out of the pit lane. In qualifying this morning, it was 0.4 of a second that separated the track-focused McLaren in the hands of Darren Kell, who will share with his son James Kell this weekend, from the number 9 PW Racing with JMH Audi in the hands of Peter Ursig. Peter sharing with, I think, what was on the entry list, Marcus Clutton. Yes, it was Marcus Clutton for this weekend. Nice to see the Brabham back as well, the black car with the gold flash right the way down the centre. Sounds absolutely glorious, that car. We've seen it win races here at Silverstone in the past. Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley, I think it was at the time, but it's Paul Bailey and David Brabham now. Michael McKinney is back at the wheel of the number 55 car, partnered up with long-time GT racer Phil Keane. So there's a few returnees for this weekend, including the one-off entrance that we've got. There is the stunning Porsche 935 of Richard Chamberlain. There's the Cayley family Porsche. Tim Docker's out at the wheel of a McLaren Artura, a McLaren Trophy specification car. And Good to see back out Mark Havers and Jared Waberski's Lamborghini as well, one of several Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars that we have, including the number 81 car of Jack Gadd, who for this weekend is partnered up with Daniel Brown. That'll be interesting to see Dan behind the wheel of one of those. I'm not sure he's ever raced the Lamborghini Super Trofeo before, Dan Brown. I stand to be corrected, but good to see Dan out in GT Cup. So the grid's starting to form. You can see the heat haze coming off the tarmac because it is, whilst it's overcast here at Silverstone, it's still a warm day. It's more of a t-shirts and just about shorts kind of day. Not as warm as we have been having, but you can still see the heat coming off the tarmac, which means that whilst the air temperature, I'm guessing, is going to be around about 18, 19 degrees, the track temperature is probably going to be mid-20s, I would have thought. Something like that. So plenty of opportunity to build some temperature into the Control Pirelli slick tyres that everybody has available to them. So onto pole position, you could just see the gold McLaren to the left of your screen. That's Darren Kell. As yet, we haven't seen Peter Ersig's Audi work its way into position. The Brabham's just coming into its start position now in the hands of Paul Bailey. But for Darren Kell, you might think that that's a different car if you've watched the previous rounds. No, it's the same car, it's just been re-wrapped. They were deciding what to do with the livery. They put a new wrap on it, weren't happy with the way that the livery looked. So it is a different wrap. It's an all gold wrap that's just on that one. So nice and easy to spot is that one. They have got the spare car with them, which is the one that they tried the new wrap on and weren't happy the way the livery looked. So I think they've opted for the plain one for this weekend. And we'll only see the other car should they encounter any mechanical gremlins with this one. And Darren Kell, as we say, we partnered up with his son James, who's been racing in GT World Challenge Europe. There's the number 58 car. That's Mark Havers, who will drive in this race. So it is just a sprint race, so there's no driver changes that will take place. It's nice to see the number 58 Lamborghini back out again, which we haven't seen as much of this year as we would have liked, really. Came for the opening round at Donington Park on the Grand Prix circuit, where in the first sprint race of that weekend they finished in 6th place overall and 2nd in Group GTC. Did Mark Havers and the South African Jared Waberski, whose father used to race in British Formula 3 in late 80s and early 90s. Did Garth Waberski. Number 23 car will be Charlotte Gilbert. That is our returning champion. We've not seen Charlotte race a race car for 9 months, but she hopped into the car yesterday and was straight on the pace. Come qualifying this morning, she's absolutely on the pace. She did a 2-minute 2.1 in qualifying. Pole position in Group GTC was a 2-minute 2.0, so she was only a tenth of a second shy of bettering the pole time of the sister car that lies alongside it. Both of those cars prepared by Top Cats Racing, but for Charlotte, a reigning champion, having won the championship overall with Tom Rawlings last year, 9 months out of the car, straight back in tricky conditions yesterday and performed well. Qualifying today in the dry, a tenth of a second shy. You'd never know she'd been out of the car for 9 months. Amazing stuff from our reigning champion. Good to see Charlotte back in GT Cup as a competitor. I think it says on the top of the car T-Lady. I think it says as the driver name on the top of the car, and that's largely because Charlotte has been involved in managing the team, as her husband Warren Gilbert does. So they put T-Lady on the top of the car rather than Charlotte Gilbert. I'm sure she probably doesn't like that, but that's what they've done for her. So then we've got all the cars, by the look of things, fully formed now. The countdown is taking place. The final few marshals about to vacate the grid, and then the rolling lap will get underway. And when it gets underway, hopefully we'll have a graphic that can guide you through the grid this time. And if it gives both driver names, I will be able to pick up on whom the starting drivers are in this one. Because in the case of some of the cars, one driver will do one race, the other will do the other sprint race. In the case of others, it will be the same driver doing both sprint races, and the only other driver will then get to hop in tomorrow for the Silverstone 100. So a bit of shuffling further down through the order. That was just positioning the Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin of Archie Clark into the correct spot. And now that he is in the correct spot, the safety car pulls away at the front of the grid with its lights illuminated, and we'll get the rolling lap underway in advance of our 12th race of the season for the GT Cup Championship. So off they go onto the formation lap. So we should then be able to guide you through the grid then and the way that they form up for this 12th round of the championship, our first of 2 sprint races that we've got on the Grand Prix circuit this afternoon. Here's the grid then. Let me guide you through the way that they line up. It is on pole position. That's the wrong grid, I'm afraid. On pole position, it will be Darren Kell that lines up on pole position. That's a Ford Focus grid by the look of that. Darren Kell lines up on pole position, and alongside will be Peter Ursig. So it's the McLaren and the Audi on the front row of the grid. It's an all Lamborghini Top Cats Racing row 2 of the grid. It's Mark Havers that has Charlotte Gilbert for company. Row 3 of the grid, it's the GCat Racing Porsche of David Shaw, and alongside him is going to be the car of Jack Gadd. And row 4 of the grid, it is Paul Bailey in the Brabham and Dominic Paul at the wheel of the Triple M Motorsport Lamborghini. The 5th row of the grid, Marcus Vivian in the Ferrari alongside Richard Chamberlain's Porsche, and it's the Cayley family Porsche, Bill Cayley, alongside Michael McKinney from Team Parker Racing in his Porsche on row number 6. Row 7 of the grid, the man we heard from earlier on, Frank Morris, who, just to clarify, he'd just got out of the shower and I'd just finished running around the circuit, just to clarify that, alongside Tim Docker at the wheel of the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. Innovation Racing with Cresta, Luke Bennett, brilliant qualifying from Luke to secure pole in Group GTH. Here's got Matt Eddles in the Aston Martin from Maselli Motorsport alongside. Then it's Feathers Motorsport, Archie Clark in the Aston Martin alongside Doc Bush in the Team Parker Racing Porsche, with Mark Ellman in the SVG Motorsport Ginetta, having for company John Turner in the Lone Wolf Racing Ferrari, which makes its debut as a one-off outing in the Silverstone 100 weekend. SVG Motorsport, Neil Wallace, who we heard from earlier on in the BMW, has the second of the Innovation Racing Ginettas alongside. That's Brent Millage, and off the back of the grid, having had his first outing in GT Cup, it's the slightly older Aston Martin from Maselli Motorsport in the hands of Chris Valentine, and that gives you the full grid for round 12 of the 2025 GT Cup. So the cars just weaving their way around the circuit, so just trying to build that final little bit of mixture of tyre temperature and brake temperature into the cars. There is, at the tail end of the field, you can see the all-white Aston Martin, the second of the 2 Aston Martins that Maselli Motorsport have brought, but that's the old homologation of car. The newer homologation of car is the car that is going to be started in the hands of Matt Eddles, and he will line up 16th on the grid in the green Aston Martin, and that will put him second actually of the qualifiers in Group GTH. If you're wondering what the groups are, Group GT3 is for GT3 homologated cars, Group GTO is for open specification cars, Group GTC is for challenge spec cars, so in other words Ferraris, Porsches that could race in Ferrari Challenge or Carrera Cup or Lamborghini Super Trofeo, but that is if they are less than 5 years old. If it's more than 5 years old, it would drop into Group GTB, but for this year we've sort of assembled Group GTC and Group GTB together for scoring purposes. Group GTH is for those cars that are homologated to GT4, and Group GTA is for lower cup spec cars or older homologated GT4s. Those are the individual groups. We're about to get racing underway. Darren Kell in the track-focused McLaren on pole position. Peter Ursig in the Audi R8 that lies alongside. 2 GT3 cars on the front row of the grid. They're all in 2x2 order. We're about to get round 12 of the 2025 GT Cup Championship underway here on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Lights are on the gantry, 25 minutes on the clock, and as the lights will flash their way out any second now, we're away and racing for the 12th time this year in GT Cup. Up towards Copse Corner, Darren Kell looking to try and grab the lead of the race. Peter Ursig slots himself through into second place. There's a bit of a wiggle on cold tyres from Richard Chamberlain at the wheel of the Porsche, who gathers up a small moment on the way into Copse, but that costs him a couple of positions. But it's McLaren from Audi for the lead of the race. It's Mark Havers who's there in third position, with Charlotte Gilbert slotting her way through into fourth place. Fifth at the moment is going to be David Shaw, and it looks as though it's Dominic Paul who's there in sixth position. I'll try and pick up on the early leader of Group GTH and Group GTA as we get the first lap underway with Charlotte Gilbert. Now, is she looking for third place here? That would give her the lead of Group GTC in the early stages, up the inside of Mark Havers, and whilst the door is open, Dominic Paul is trying to squeeze his way through, so 2 places lost there, and to 2 identical cars for Mark Havers. He's dropped down to third in Group GTC. 5th overall at the moment, and it's the returning champ, Charlotte Gilbert, that leads the way. Mark Havers back at the inside of Dominic Paul. There might have been a little bit of contact between the pair of them, and now trying to go around the outside is David Shaw at the wheel of the Group GT3 Porsche, but he thinks better of it in the early stages and tucks himself back behind as they charge their way down the Lewis Hamilton straight for the first time. The Porsche of Richard Chamberlain had the wiggle at the first corner, trying to make progress, and he is at the moment doing battle with Jack Gadd, who is coming under pressure from Bill Cayley at the wheel of the Porsche that sits behind. Up towards the braking area for Village they'll go. All concertina up in towards the braking area for Village. Then the short squirt of the throttle before you head up towards Village corner. Be careful on the exit, because that's where in one of the supporting races a load of oil was put down, and that you can still see the telltale marks of that where the marshals have treated it with some quick dry. Charlotte Gilbert, since taking the lead of Group GTC, has really pulled away, hasn't she? She's in third, and now up to fourth goes the black Porsche, does it? Yeah, up the inside of Dominic Paul, and that's ahead of the Triple M Motorsport Lamborghini in the hands of Dominic, driving his car for the first time. And you can see there is a bit of damage to the left-hand side of that car, so I do think there was a bit of contact between himself and Mark Havers, when Mark nipped back at the inside in towards the braking area for Club. Paul Bailey in the Brabham going well, but who's right behind him? That's Richard Chamberlain, and the Brabham and the orange Porsche are both in Group GTO, so this is for the class lead in Group GTO. So good to see the Brabham back. It looks everything a sports car should be. Looks menacing, beautifully designed, sounds absolutely glorious as well. And Paul Bailey is now pulling away a little bit from Richard Chamberlain. He's catching on to the coattails of Marcus Vivian, who clatters into the side, I'm afraid, of Mark Havers. There's more contact between Lamborghini and Ferrari all the way through the final part of Beckett's, and then there's a spin for Mark Havers, who I think must have some suspension damage, and he spins right across the front of Jack Gadd, who tries to gather the moment up. Frank Morris almost had to take to the grass as well, but for poor old Mark Havers there, that is, I think, a problem for his car is that rear suspension damage, because he seemed to have the Ferrari make contact with him once, and then they sort of parted company, then had a second little bit of contact between the pair. He took to the old tarmac and run off, and then all of a sudden as he rejoined, the car seemed to sort of loop on him as though there was maybe an issue with the suspension. And there's more damage. Matt Eddles gets right into the side of Tim Docker's Paddock Motorsport McLaren Artura, and that's down into the braking area for Club corner. So Matt Eddles escapes the scene, limping round his Marcus Vivian's Porsche, so I think that's destined for the pit lane. We'll have to wait and see as to exactly who else might be destined for the pit lane, but I think we could possibly end up requiring a safety car for all of this. So with cars stuck in the gravel and some damaged in the middle of the circuit, out I think are coming the safety car boards. Marcus Vivian trying to keep his car out of harm's way as he trundles his way back to the pit lane. No such trundling for Tim Docker, who is stationary, I'm afraid, in the gravel trap there at Club corner. Well, that was a fraught couple of laps, wasn't it? So safety car coming out onto track, which means that will bunch the field up whilst we get Tim Docker's car out of harm's way, but more importantly get Mark Havers and the Lamborghini out of harm's way, who was, I say, very lucky that he wasn't collected as he speared across the track, clearly with some sort of suspension damage or something to his car, right across in front of Frank Morris, right across in front of Jack Gadd, who had to take to the grass and with lots of arm twirling just about avoided a spin himself. So I'll confirm the order as they come over the start-finish line. It is Darren Kell that leads the way from Peter Ursig in second place, so it's McLaren from Audi, then it's Charlotte Gilbert, and that's Chris Valentine that's off as well. So the Aston Martin is off and stuck well and truly in the gravel, the hip-hop supported car. I'm not sure where that is. So let me run through the order then. Darren Kell in the McLaren leads the way. Peter Ursig in the Audi in second place. The reigning champion back for the first time, Charlotte Gilbert third and leading Group GTC at this stage. And fourth is the Porsche, the all-black Porsche from GCAT Racing in the hands of David Shaw. Fifth is number 4, that's Dominic Paul. And sixth is going to be the leader of Group GTO, which is the Brabham in the hands of Paul Bailey. Richard Chamberlain is 7th at the wheel of the bright orange Porsche. It's going to be Bill Cayley, who is in 8th place at the wheel of the family number 80 Porsche. Michael McKinney, number 55, is 9th, and completing the top 10 is going to be Frank Morris. So there is the forlorn sight of Tim Docker trudging away from his stricken McLaren Artura, who, I say, was sort of minding his own business to a degree before he was clattered into. And there is the unfortunate sight of the number 58 Lamborghini. There's Chris Valentine, and that's an off and into the gravel trap at Copse, I'm afraid. I did think it might be Copse, but that was a long, long way into the gravel. And then the replay of what happened to Mark Havers. Just look at the evasive action of Jack Gadd onto the grass. Michael McKinney was onto the grass as well, and how Jack Gadd avoided a spin, I don't know. And then we see Tim Docker minding his own business, turns in towards club, and Matt Eddles just braking a little bit too late. And the problem is, once you realise you've braked too late, there's nothing Matt could have done to avoid that incident. He'd have known it was coming, but there's nothing he could do. He was just a bit too late on the brakes, and Tim Docker was already turning into the corner and was a bit of an innocent party in that one, I'm afraid. So that was a fraught first lap. As we continue through the order, the number 30 car is going to be leading Group GTH at the moment, which is going to be Luke Bennett. So that is in 11th place overall, but that will be the leader of Group GTH. Second in Group GTH will be Archie Clark in the number 82 Feathers Motorsport Ginetta. Third in GTH will be number 99 Mark Ellman. And who's going to be leading Group GTA? It is going to be car number 24, which is Neil Wallace, who leads Group GTA at this stage. And he is running down in 16th position. So that's the order of the top 15 or so, and picking out the class leaders or the group leaders that are just outside of that. So into the pit lane came Marcus Vivian in the Ferrari 296 at the end of that previous lap. Car that started well up the order. Marcus Vivian started in 9th position and is on an outlap, so I think they've looked at the Ferrari, they've probably put a new tyre on it, and I do think the number 128 car is back out again. Now I think he's also potentially stayed on the lead lap, so we'll keep an eye towards that Ferrari with its almost Hawaiian livery to it, with the sunset and the palm trees down the side of it, because he's showing as being back on an outlap, which means that he's left the pit lane and might be able to catch the pack again once more. Clock's still ticking whilst all of this is going on, which means that we now have heading towards 16.5 minutes of the 25 remaining. But what we do need to do is get Tim Docker's car out of the club gravel trap. We need to get Chris Valentine's car out of the Cops gravel trap, and we need to get Mark Haver's Top Cats Racing Lamborghini back to where it needs to be, because it was moved from where it came to rest in the middle of the circuit up towards the grass on the exit of Chapel Curve, but I've not subsequently seen as to where it's gone from there. So it's out of harm's way from that shot, and looks as though that part of the circuit now largely looks clear. So yeah, Mark Haver's car not visible from that position. So he is showing as being in the pits actually at the moment, Mark Havers. So he did make it back round from that point and into the pits. So it's just Tim Docker's car which needs sorting out from the club gravel trap. That is in the process of being attached to the telehandler, which will drag it backwards through the gravel trap. So into the pit lane comes Mark Havers. I thought there might be some suspension damage on that car, but clearly if he's driven it back, that's not the case. But that is bitter disappointment for Mark Havers. Apologies if you heard any language there, you can understand his disappointment. So hopefully, and I'm sure Top Cats Racing will have all of the requisite parts to sort that car out. Doesn't look too badly damaged actually. So there was sort of side-to-side contact on a couple of occasions with that Ferrari, and a bit of side-to-side contact with Dominic Paul's car, but they are pushing the car back. You can see the swirls down the side of the car, the dint in the door, the dint to the sill. But I think, having chatted to the team, thumbs up is given, and he's going to be able to head back out onto the circuit. And the one good thing is that it was a green light at the end of the pit lane, I would imagine, so he's able to head back out and potentially catch the pack again once more. So I think most of the cars are behind the safety car. The car in the background of the shot there, I think, is Marcus Vivian in the Ferrari, just trying to play catch up at the moment. The lights are still on the safety car, so I think we'll probably have a further lap after this one before we can get things back underway, because usually it would be underneath the bridge at the Wellington Straight where the lights would get extinguished if we were going to go racing the next lap through. But for the moment, the driver's having to be content with sitting behind the safety car, and even whilst all of this is going on, there's still work to be done, because you've still got to make sure you keep some tyre temperature into your Control Pirelli slick tyres that everybody runs. You need to make sure that, in particular, in these more modern GT cars, you keep good brake temperature as well. Now, the rear wheels of Chris Valentine's car didn't look to be turning there, which may well just be because there's so much gravel in the car that they've not yet freed themselves up. But hopefully, as long as he can get going, he'll be good to go. There's the Hawaiian livery on that car. It really does look fantastic, doesn't it? Marcus Vivian's car and Francesco Castellacci, who will be sharing that car with him tomorrow. So we saw them out here racing on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit when British GT were here earlier on in the year, but it's the first time we've seen them in GT Cup. Weekend not quite has started in race terms as well as they'd have wanted, but the one good thing is, with the safety car coming out, they could come into the pits, they could get the car checked over, they could place a new tyre on it if that's what the problem was, and they have stayed on the lead lap of the race. Whereas for Mark Havers, who's been waved out of the pit lane, he dropped off the lead lap of the race because he was stricken at the side of the circuit for a lap. So the other car that came into the pits to be checked over, again, whilst it was given the thumbs up, great, but unfortunately they are not on the lead lap anymore. So pack heading down at the Hangar Straight towards Stowe Corner, and it's McLaren from Audi, from Lamborghini, from Porsche, from Lamborghini, from Brabham, from Porsche, I think, at this stage. So our group leaders at this stage, leading Group GT3 is the number 88 McLaren, the overall leader. Leading Group GTC for the challenge specification cars is number 23 in third place, Charlotte Gilbert. Leading Group GTO for the open specification cars is number 28, Paul Bailey, at the wheel of the black and gold Brabham. Leading Group GTH for the GT4 spec cars is going to be car number 30, which is Luke Bennett, who's just outside of the top 10 in 11th position. That's the largely white and grey and green Ginetta, if you want the colours of it. And then leading Group GTA, which is for the lower spec cup and challenge cars, will make GT cars and older GT4 cars, which is largely what we see in Group GTA at the moment. That's it's almost works liveried BMW with the white, with the blue, with the red of SVG Motorsport, with Neil Wallace behind the wheel for this race. So just over 11 minutes of the race still remain. Hopefully we might see lights out on the safety car, maybe at the end of this lap. No confirmation of that as yet has found its way to us, so the indication might be at the end of the straight of whether the lights get extinguished, but for the moment the lights are still on. So I think there's still maybe a little bit of work going on up at Copse Corner with Chris Valentine's Aston Martin from Maselli Motorsport, which was dragged out of the gravel, but say I couldn't see the rear wheels rotating as soon as it came out of the gravel, but that may well be just the fact there was so much gravel in between the brake disc and the caliper and where the wheel seats onto that it just hadn't freed up, and would do once the car got rolling a little bit. So a further lap behind the safety car. Now it's taking at the moment about 3.5 minutes to do a lap behind the safety car, so it takes about 1.5 minutes longer behind the safety car than it does under racing conditions. And through Copse Corner goes the safety car. Are we going to see any sign of any further work going on there at Copse Corner? Everybody else just working their way through and past the point that was the last little bit that had trackside work going on. There's the Group GTA leading BMW just heading through shot there. There is the other one-off entry. We've got the Lone Wolf racing car of John Turner, and John sharing that car with Ray Grimes. Good to see Ray out racing in GT Cup. He's been a long time race for us, Ray Grimes. He's what, 67 years of age now, I think, Ray. Still looks very slim and fit for a 67-year-old. So first cut his teeth, did Ray, in racing Ford Fiestas. I think he was a St Helens Ford Fiesta XR2 champion when Alton Park had its own Fiesta XR2 championship in the 80s and 90s. I think that was when Ray first appeared on the scene, as far as I can recall. But has raced Ferraris for a good number of years now. Has been an instructor in Ferrari Challenge, both in the UK and in Europe as well. So good to see him partnered up and imparting his knowledge onto John Turner, who has done very little racing really, John. It's only his second year of racing, but hasn't done huge amounts of racing. So safety car heads down towards Club. 8 3/4 minutes of the race still to go. And fingers crossed, safety car might be in at the end of this lap. That would be at least then a good 3 or maybe 4 laps of racing we'll be able to squeeze into this one. Probably only 4 actually is all we would get, but it's just been one of those unfortunate incidents where we've got 2 or 3 incidents all at separate points around the circuit. One at Copse Corner, one at the exit of Chapel Curve heading onto the Hanger Straight, and then another one down at Club Corner. So 3 separate incidents that all need dealing with. That calls on the resources of the marshals and the recovery crews and the telehandlers to sort it out, and hopefully we can get going. So lights off on the safety car, and they work their way up towards Brooklands. So 7.5 minutes to go, and the cars just working their way up towards the start-finish line. We're about to get the race back underway here at Silverstone. Up towards the start-finish line. No overtaking until you reach the control line, but Darren Kell gets on with the job in hand and tries to get a good restart. Peter Ursig, though, in the Audi is going with him. Charlotte Gilbert still hangs on to 3rd place. The battle for the lead of Group GTO is still going the way of the Brabham, but only just from Richard Chamberlain's orange Porsche 935. And as they thread their way up towards Maggots and Beckett's now for what will be the 7th time of asking, it's Darren Kell that still continues to lead the way. Charlotte Gilbert sitting there in 3rd place will still be the leader of Group GTC, but Dominic Paul, 2nd in Group GTC. His first outing in the car was in testing yesterday, and here he is sitting hot on the heels of the 4th placed Porsche in the hands of David Shaw. In a straight line, you could argue the Super Trofeo car has a little bit more power, but it hasn't got the aero of a GT3 homologated car, so it's always going to be slightly slower through the twiddly parts. So for the moment, it's still Lamborghini from Porsche from Lamborghini for 3rd, 4th and 5th. The black Brabham with the gold flash down the centre of it still sits there as the leader of Group GTO. So over the start-finish line for the main Grand Prix circuit, that being the Lewis Hamilton Straight, goes the battle for the lead of the race. Richard Chamberlain's Porsche still having a good run actually, 7th place overall, 2nd in the group. Jack Gadd further down through the order is trying to fend away Archie Clark at the wheel of the Group GTH Aston Martin. And Archie Clark, sitting there at the wheel of that number 82 car, is currently going to be sitting 2nd in Group GTH. So he really wants to get past, if he can, Jack Gadd's car, because then he can begin to close in on the Group GTH leading Ginetta that lies just up the road. But it's not Jack Gadd's job really to get out of harm's way. He wants to finish as high up as he possibly can and recover from his spin. We might have a change here. David Shaw with a decisive move up the inside of Charlotte Gilbert, sneaks the Porsche through. So it's Group GT3 cars now 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Charlotte Gilbert drops to 4th but still leads Group GTC. Look in the mirrors though, who's there? Dominic Paul, having his first outing in the GT Cup for a good number of years. His first outing in this Lamborghini, and he's hot on the heels of the reigning champion from 2024, looking to try and scoop up the lead of Group GTC. So 5 minutes to go. They head down towards Maggots and Beckett's and then flick their way up towards Chapel Curve before too much longer. Good exit coming out of Beckett's and on towards Chapel Curve could offer up a glimmer of hope for Darren Kell and for Dominic Paul as he tries to get in the slipstream of Charlotte Gilbert. They've got Paul Bailey's Brabham beginning to close in on behind them. Paul Bailey looking for a move up the inside of Dominic Paul. That was from a long way back though, so it was more just a case of showing the nose of the car to Dominic Paul. But for Dominic, he will not be distracted by that. He'll want to see if he can get right onto the coattails of Charlotte Gilbert evermore. He's not going to try anything down in towards a braking area for Club. He's still got probably another couple of laps to try and see what he might be able to do to unlock the door and pick up the lead of Group GTC. So this is 4th and 5th overall, the 2 Lamborghinis. Dominic just running a little bit wide coming out of the exit of Club. Doesn't really compromise his run down the Hamilton Straight though, as he pitches the car in towards the Kinkert Abbey. And then up towards Farm Curve, which is pretty much taken flat, and then Farm's quite difficult because you have to move the car from the right all the way to the left and get into the heavy braking area for the tight corner at Village. And then from there, another key corner, the loop. Make sure you are cleanly out of the loop and carry as much speed as you can through Aintree to get on to the Wellington Straight. And through the twiddly parts, those Lamborghinis are, I think, just pulling away from the Brabham, but in a straight line, as you would expect. The open specification Brabham, Group GTO leader, is going well. Good return for the Brabham, this is, having had a huge amount of engine woes with it over the years. It really has been a work in progress, and now Paul Bailey and David Brabham are almost having to develop or redevelop this car and understand it with the changes that have taken place to try and get some consistency and reliability out of the car. But it is fantastic to see, and it sounds unbelievable. New fastest lap of the race went through to Darren Kell last time through, 2 minutes 3.228. Another good fight further down through the order is going to be Frank Morris fighting away with Jack Gadd. Now that's for 10th and 11th places overall, as recovering back onto the circuit goes the Lone Wolf Racing Ferrari there. Not quite sure what happened to John Turner, but he gathered up the moment and continued on. I think that was just a small off and onto the grass for him, but he will continue. But for Frank Morris and Jack Gadd, they're having a good fight over 10th and 11th overall. That's going to be 5th and 6th in Group GTC. They've got the Group GTH leading car right behind them, actually, which is Luke Bennett, who's having a brilliant run. He really had a good qualifying session. Jack Gadd up the inside of Frank Morris, looking for it, but no, can't quite make it stick as they head up towards Stowe Corner. And another fight behind them is going to be Charlie Clark in the Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin, who is trying to hang on to that. Will be second in Group GTH. He's got Mark Ellman in the SVG Motorsport Ginetta right behind. So wherever you look at the moment, there are some good fights going on. Race leaders should be heading on to the final lap of the race next time through, because there's less than a lap time left on the clock. Through the kink at Abbey and up towards Farm goes the fight for 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th place. So Michael McKinney, Frank Morris, Jack Gadd trying to draw himself alongside Frank Morris. That would be the outside at Village to get the inside for the loop, and he's squeezed by Frank Morris onto the grass, who allows Jack Gadd just to get off the throttle. Then Jack Gadd thinks, no, hang on a minute, I'm going to put the pressure on again here as we head up towards the loop. And Jack Gadd, despite the defensive efforts of Frank Morris, has managed to wiggle his way through. And now that Frank Morris has delayed himself a little bit coming out of Aintree, he finds himself under pressure from the next car coming through. And that next car will be the Group GT8 leading car of Luke Bennett. So Jack Gadd now up into 10th place. Frank Morris, who we spoke to earlier on, down into 11th. The Group GTH leading car of Luke Bennett not that far behind. And as they start to build the speeds again, as they head through the kink at Woodcut and over the start-finish line, the next target for Jack Gadd will be catching in on the light blue Porsche that lies ahead, which is Michael McKinney, who returns to the championship this weekend. Now he's not quite close enough, Jack, as they head up towards Maggots and Beckett's, and that's not really an overtaking opportunity anyway, so he'll keep his powder dry and try and get a good launch coming out of the final part of Beckett's and through what is Chapel Curve, and that's where he is at the moment. So out of the left-hander at Chapel, Jack Gadd sitting right on the coattails of the Porsche. He jinks out from behind to the left-hand side of the circuit, but that's the outside line for Stowe. Is he going to get the job done by the time they get to the braking area for Stowe Corner? No, not quite. So he braves it out all the way around the outside at Stowe, and if that works, that would give him the inside line for Club. But no, you can see the brake lights come on mid-corner there as the car started to drift away from Jack, but now he sticks with it. Nose of the car dips as he turns in towards Club. They're still side by side at Club Corner. The Porsche on the inside line. Jack Gadd again ends up getting back off the throttle to tuck himself back behind, and now is he going to try and get a run as they head onto the Hamilton Straight? Surely they can't go side by side through Abbey. They are side by side on the way up towards Abbey, and as they get towards Abbey, no, Jack Gadd just blends out of the throttle, turns in and thinks, right, I'll have another attack here as we head through Farm Curve. And again, this time up towards Farm, in towards the braking area for Village. They are side by side again. In the background, also Frank Morris under attack from Luke Bennett. The clock has ticked to 0. This is a great battle for 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th place, but over the start-finish line to win round 12 of the 2025 GT Cup Championship comes Darren Kell to claim the win. It is going to be Peter Ursig that comes through in the Audi to finish in second position, and third place will go the way of David Shaw, who finishes in third place. Fourth place goes the way of Charlotte Gilbert, comes through to finish in fourth place and claim the win in Group GTC. only just ahead though of Dominic Paul, who finishes 5th in his debut in this car. Paul Bailey finishes in 6th and will claim the win in Group GTO, and Frank Thomas I think is going to pick the pocket, is he, of Michael McKinney on the run to the flag. Jack Gadd got through, and Frank Thomas I think just sneaks his way through, does he, to claim a further position. So that was some good squabbling. The win in Group GTH going the way of Luke Bennett, who will come through to finish in 12th place. And I think the only other group winner to come through now will be the BMW in Group GTA in the hands of Neil Wallace. And that is one of the driver pairings we caught up with earlier on, who lie as the leaders of Group GTA. And of course, 3rd overall in the championship. They will be very shortly about to take the checkered flag. So for Darren Kell, he will be absolutely delighted with that one. That is only the 2nd win of the season for Darren Kell. The first win of the season came in our opening 100-minute race, which was at Donington Park, and that was the first one came the opening weekend of the 2025 championship season at the Donington 100, but it was the second of the 2 sprint races there where he claimed a win. And other than that, it's been 2nds and 3rds and 5ths and 6ths so far this season. So let's just confirm some results for you then for round 12 of the 2025 GT Cup Championship. It was a win for Darren Kell, who claimed the win by 2.5 seconds in the end from Peter Ursig in 2nd place, and it was David Shaw who was there in 3rd. 4th, and the win in Group GTC went the way of Charlotte Gilbert from Dominic Paul in 5th place, and the Group GTO winner was 6th, which was Paul Bailey. Richard Chamberlain was 7th, ahead of Bill Cayley, who was in 8th place. Jack Gadd was 9th, just ahead of Frank Morris, but they were involved in a fantastic fight. Michael McKinney dropped to 11th in the end in 12th place. It was a win in Group GTH for Luke Bennett, ahead of Marcus Vivian, who refought his way back through to 13th position. 14th place was Archie Clark, with Mark Ellman in 15th, Matt Eddles in 16th, Doc Bush in 17th, and the winning Group GTA went the way of the number 24 BMW, Neil Wallace, who finished next up. And you can see a few cars in strife, with problems for Tim Docker and also problems for Chris Valentine, who never reappeared at the wheel of his Aston Martin. So that was the race. I think we can just look back at some of the highlights of it. As the cars came over the start-finish line and up towards Copse Corner for the first time, it was Darren Kell that took the early lead from Peter Ursig. There was a bit of a wiggle on cold tyres for Richard Chamberlain. That cost him a couple of early places in the race. But then the action started to happen. Mark Havers up the inside of Dominic Paul gained a place, but there was a little bit of contact between the pair. There was an off and into the gravel trap at Copse Corner for Chris Valentine, making his debut in the championship. And then, following contact with Marcus Vivian's Ferrari, there was a big wild spin for Mark Havers at Chapel Curve, right in front of the pack. That would cause problems for him. And on the same lap, also Tim Docker was tapped into a spin and into the gravel trap at Club Corner by Matt Eddles. That would bring out the safety car whilst we recovered cars from their respective points. 3 separate cars, all on the same lap at Copse, at Chapel and at Club Curve, needed tidying out of the way. Charlotte Gilbert, returning to the championship, was leading Group GTC. A decisive move up the inside from her, though. Saw David Shaw's Porsche sneak his way through, and Charlotte Gilbert would continue to have a good battle with Dominic Paul for 4th overall and the lead of Group GTC for the rest of the race. Remember, she hadn't driven a race car for 9 months prior to jumping into the car yesterday in testing. But for Darren Kell, the rest of the race was all largely undramatic. He would come over the start-finish line and claim the win in round 12 of the 2025 GT Cup Championship, his 2nd win of the 2025 championship season. For Peter Ursig, who was in 2nd place, and David Shaw made it into 3rd. So that's it. That's all from the GT Cup Championship for the moment. We've got round 13 of the championship, our 2nd sprint race of the day, coming up for you later on this afternoon. So if you want to join us for that one, we'll be going live around about 4:30, 20 to 5, something like that. So from everybody here at Silverstone, GT Cup, Butte Motorsport and Onside Productions, thanks for joining us for round 12. We'll see you later on this afternoon for round 13. Goodbye.